This video will give you an introduction into different Christian perspectives on capital punishment. What is capital punishment? It is a form of punishment sanctioned by the government which punishes a crime with death. It is also known as the death penalty. It is a form of punishment that was common in the past, but has gone out of favor in many parts of the world. Look at this map from deathpenaltyinfo.org of countries that still have capital punishment written into law. Australia abolished the death penalty in 1985, but it was last used in 1967. Brenda Hodge was the last person sentenced to death in 1984, but her sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. You can see that it is largely in the Middle East and America that retain the death penalty in law. For a Christian perspective on capital punishment, it makes sense to go to the Bible. However, passages from the Bible can be interpreted to support and refute the death penalty, which means there is no singular Christian view. The earliest scriptures allow for retribution, for the repayment of the crime of murder. However, the Old Testament also allows the death penalty for other crimes that modern societies would not accept the death penalty for. Moreover, in the New Testament, Jesus seems to overturn many of the laws of the Old Testament. Jesus advocates mercy as well as justice, and treating others the way you would like to be treated. St. Augustine believed that the death penalty does not go against the Bible's commandment, "Do not kill," because the death penalty is implemented by the government rather than an individual. He believed that there were certain circumstances in which it was acceptable to implement the death penalty. Likewise, St. Thomas Aquinas believed that some people may be executed because they have the opportunity to repent of their sins up to the point of death. He writes that an individual may be dangerous and infectious to a community if there is no death penalty. The teaching document of the Catholic Church, the Catechism, does not completely rule out the death penalty. In fact, the death penalty was in law in the Vatican from 1929 to 1969 for anyone who attempted to assassinate the Pope. However, the current attitude of the Church definitely goes against capital punishment. In an interview in 2015, Pope Francis stated, "Today, the death penalty is inadmissible, no matter how serious the crime committed." The Pope's reasons for this are that the death penalty interrupts God's plan and is not about justice, but vengeance. Pope Francis has effected a shift in the Church towards mercy, seen in the announcement of the Holy Year of Mercy in 2015. Even back in 1999, Pope John Paul II called for the end of the death penalty on the grounds that it is cruel and unnecessary. The Church teaches that the aims of punishment should be retribution, the punishment fits the offense; deterrence, putting the person and others off from committing the crime; protection of society; and rehabilitation, helping the wrongdoer to reform. Some Christians argue that only God should have the power to create and destroy life, an argument often applied to other areas of applied ethics, such as IVF, abortion, and euthanasia. There are many non-religious arguments that some Christians use against the death penalty. Many also argue that the way in which the death penalty works in a society privileges those with the money to defend themselves, and, as can be seen in the statistics of young black men sentenced to death in the USA, it is often the marginalized who are subjected to it. It is also costly for a country to impose the death penalty. The teachings of Jesus are often used in evidence of Christian opposition to the death penalty. Jesus taught forgiveness. His disciples asked if they should forgive 7 times, and Jesus said, "Not only 7 times, but 70 times 7 times."